Welcome to another episode of the Jockstrap Podcast. This is your host, Nick, along with your co-host, Colin, here to bring you guys some more good sports news. We'll top in today with some NFL news. The NFL just announced a new salary cap floor. Colin, go ahead and tell our guests a little bit more about this.
Okay, so earlier in the year, the salary cap floor was slated to be around $175 million. But according to a new memo sent to NFL teams, it's been raised to $180 million. But while the floor has risen, that's not the set amount for what the cap's going to be this upcoming season. The NFL and FLPA still have to agree on the final amount. And it sounds like that reveal for the salary cap won't be coming till mid-March, even though that usually comes mid-February. But that's huge that the salary cap's continuing to go up a little bit because it was 198 million this year. So even if it's $180 million, that's still $18 million down. So it's nice that it seems like it's coming up, and that it sounds like right now might end up finishing around 185. So if it was only around 14 million down, that wouldn't be as big of a hit, because there are a lot of teams right now that are way over the cap.
Yeah, I think it's good that they moved it as well, especially with everything that happened this offseason in terms of COVID. I feel like a lot of teams are not willing to do a lot of spending, and lowering that cap and doing the floor definitely helps a lot of teams out.
Yeah, and it sounds like the reason why they're raising the cap is because they might be borrowing from next year and the year after that's money that they make, because it sounds like right now they will basically want to double what their current TV cost is. So it sounds like because of they're expecting the amount that they sell the TV for, the ESPN contract and the NBC contract, it sounds like they're borrowing that money basically. That's why the cap's gonna go up.
Yeah, seeing the NFL was asking double the price for Disney, which owns ESPN, to keep the rights to Monday Night Football. And Disney was bouncing back pretty hard, saying that they're not going to pay that. So it'll be interesting to see in the upcoming weeks what happens with that. You may see another competitor like Amazon or Fox or CBS jump in there and try to put in a bid for the rights to Monday Night Football,
Yeah, definitely.
which I wouldn't mind because I'm not really a fan of the ESPN announcers.
Yeah, I'm not either. They've always kind of been bad in my opinion. Like
Yeah, no,
basically
they're dog shit.
basically every sport. Even baseball isn't very good. But I do think that, at least in terms of baseball, I don't mind the strike zone box. For some reason, I see a lot of people on Twitter really hating on that. I don't really mind it that much. I don't know why people hate it so much.
hmm So let's go into our next point here. Big news out of Indianapolis. The Colts just traded for Carson Wentz. What do you think about that, Colin?
So the deal was the Colts traded Carson Wentz for a third rounder and a conditional second rounder. And according to Mike Garfolo, is that how you say his name? I don't know. The
Who
con-
fucking knows?
yeah, I don't know.
Garfield, maybe?
Yeah, fucking dumb cat. The conditional second round pick becomes a first round pick if Carson Wentz plays 75% of the snaps, or if he plays 70% of the, or if he plays 70% of the snaps and the Colts make the playoffs. So, um, my take on it is I think the Eagles did a good job on this. I would have been surprised if the Eagles had just a second round pick on it. So the fact that they got a third round pick and a second round pick that could turn into a first round pick, I think they did pretty good with this deal. This is about as good as they could have done. So in terms of a grade for me, I would give the Eagles an A minus and the Colts a C minus. But that's a low C minus. It's pretty close to like a D to me, for me to be honest. I think the Colts made a bad decision giving up that. I think personally, I wouldn't have given up more than like a third rounder, to be honest. I just feel like Carson Wentz is a huge question mark right now with all of the mechanical mistakes or mechanical problems he had last year, and the fact that it seemed like he was really butting heads with his previous coach, Doug Peterson, who's a really good coach. It just seemed like he's a big headache right now for any team that they got him and Colts got him. So that just seemed like too much to give up for that, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I also think that the Colts reached a lot for him. Yeah, I think the Colts overpaid for him. I know that he has a history with Frank Reich, but for a player that hasn't been the same since the injury, he had an MVP year before that, but after that, just hasn't been the same player. I think they gave up way too much. I would have probably given up a third or fourth round pick for him. That's it. But the fact that the Eagles got a second round pick and a potential first round pick out of him is insane. So for my grades, I'm going to go with a D for the Colts because it kind of seems like they're grasping at this point. They're looking for their next franchise quarterback. Since Andrew Luck left, they've just been empty handed. And for the Eagles, I'm going to go ahead and give them an A. This is exactly what that franchise needed to get back on track. They needed to get rid of the headache of Carson Wentz, and they needed to get some picks to put some weapons around Jalen Hurts, who I think is going to be their starter from now on.
Yeah, I think, at least in my opinion, I think the Eagles should definitely move forward with him as the starter. And according to USA Today, the Eagles are going to be taking on the biggest cap hit in NFL history after the Carson Wentz deal. It's going to be $33.8 million. So that's kind of ridiculous that, you know, that cap hit.
Yeah, that's pretty fucking crazy. I heard that he's going to be the highest paid person on the team, even without him being on the team because of that cap hit.
Yeah, that's just ridiculous. I still don't understand that deal they gave him. I also don't understand the Jared Goff deal. Like, yeah, they were young and you drafted them, but I mean, Carson Wentz at least showed like the potential to be like an MVP candidate. Jared Goff never did, but Carson Wentz also didn't really show it after coming back from injury. So I'm not sure why, he got that big contract. I'm still not making. I still can't make sense of that.
I agree. So yeah, our next point is going to be about Jalen Hurts. Like I said, I think Jalen Hurts is the perfect fit for the starting job, but a lot of people, according to some sources, say that he's just not going to be handed the starting job with the Eagles. There's been a lot of speculation about the Eagles potentially trading up and landing a quarterback such as Justin Fields in the first round. What do you think, Colin?
Yeah. So according to this quote from Les Bowen, this quote was from on February 17th, one day before the Carson Wentz trade. The quote is, spoke with NFL management source, not from the Eagles, about the Wentz melodrama. His viewpoint: if Wentz doesn't want the Bears aren't going to trade for him. Eventually, the Eagles take whatever Indy's offering, maybe a second plus something. Also, the Eagles draft quarterback sixth overall. So it looks like they were completely right that if he doesn't want the Bears aren't going to trade for him. I mean, it looks like he was 100% right on that because the Bears didn't even make an offer for Wentz, which isn't surprising. You don't trade for a player who doesn't want to play for you. And I'm not understanding why they would why they would draft quarterback sixth overall. Because he played really good last year in the limited amount of time that he played, even with like not having the best weapons, not really having a good receiving core or line, but I just don't know why they would, to be honest.
Yeah, I think Jalen Hurts is an absolute fucking baller. This dude can run, he can throw. He's what the NFL quarterback is turning into. I think that they need to go tight end or wide receiver with their sixth overall pick. A guy like Kyle Pitts would be a huge addition, improving the offensive line, or even landing a guy like Jalen Waddle or Devontae Smith would be in the right direction of where they need to go. Getting a quarterback there is just kind of pointless, considering that they already have their future quarterback, in my opinion.
Yeah, this could be a play, in my opinion, to raise the value of their pick. Because if other teams think that they're going for a quarterback, obviously what they'd have to give up to get that pick would, go up. So that might just be a play by them to raise the price of that pick. But if they're actually considering drafting quarterback there, I don't know what the fuck they're doing. I think Hurts is definitely the quarterback of the future there, and they should definitely surround him with weapons. So tight end, wide receiver, or a lineman. I wouldn't understand a quarterback there at all.
And there's going to be a dominant lineman on the board still, even if Penny's gone at that point. You still have Rashawn Slater, who is a fucking unit up front. He can be their long-term answer at tackle. And, their wide receiving core, I couldn't even fucking name one receiver that's left on that team other than Alshon Jeffries, who's fucking washed up.
Jeffers
They need.
actually just got released
Did
yesterday.
he really?
Yep.
That's funny.
So
Well, he's probably going to be serving me burgers at McDonald's now.
yeah, I can't stay healthy.
Yeah, I mean, probably don't need much help to be flipping some fucking burgers, but let's go on to our bullshit report of the week here. So this one really shocked me, and I know it did Colin as well, but at least one team has reported that Zach Wilson is ranked above Trevor Lawrence on their draft board. What do you think about this absolutely bullshit report of the week?
This is definitely complete garbage. There's no way a team thinks Zach Wilson is better than Trevor Lawrence, or at least has him higher on their draft board. Like, don't get me wrong. I think there are multiple very high ceiling quarterbacks in this draft. Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, and Trey Lance. I think they're all extremely high ceilings who, could be great quarterbacks in the NFL. And I think Zach Wilson could probably definitely be the second best. I think he's a really high ceiling, but I don't think any team really has him ranked above Trevor Lawrence. I don't see that. Um, so the quote here from Matt Miller that we have is, this is from a scout, I believe. Guess so. The quote is, "What he does as a thrower and as a runner is exactly where we are as a league right now," NFL college scouting director told Miller. He throws some of those 50-50 balls with his shoulder square to the defense after running around in the pocket, and I'm seeing Patrick Mahomes at Texas Tech all over again. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is without a doubt the best quarterback in football right now. Some of those incomplete passes that he was making during the Super Bowl were ridiculous. Like no other quarterback ever would even get those balls close to being completed, and he was almost getting them completed. So I don't think you should be comparing anybody to Mahomes right now, to be honest. I just don't think you should be doing that. He's just way too good.
Yeah, I think Zach Wilson's going to be a good player. I think he has an extremely high ceiling, but Trevor Lawrence has just proved it over and over again. This dude won a national championship as a freshman, and he's hung with the best of the best. Zach Wilson, like I said, great player, but he hasn't really proven much. He comes from a pretty small conference, pretty small college, and every time he's played against big competition, he hasn't really showed up. I mean, for example, whenever they played Coastal Carolina, who was another top 20 team, he kind of shit the bed. I do like what he has, though. He has some good attributes. He can fucking sling it. He's got some legs on him. But Trevor Lawrence has some legs on him, too. During the national championship game, his freshman year, he was running for 50, 60, 70 yards. He had one breakaway touchdown run that was insane where he juked out the defense. I think Trevor Lawrence is a more complete quarterback already. I think he has a way higher ceiling. And I just think there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that he's going number one overall. I haven't seen a quarterback like him in the draft since Peyton Manning. That's a bold claim, but I have not seen a quarterback as good as him through the draft since Peyton Manning.
Yeah, and this could just be a play to possibly lower Trevor Lawrence's value in the draft because we see this every year where a team really wants a player and they don't think he's gonna fall to them, so they bring up stuff like this, like saying, oh, like somebody has this player ranked high or this player like had problems in like our interviews or whatever, just like lower their draft value. But I don't see this working. Trevor Lawrence just looks like a way too complete of a quarterback to fall from first overall. He's the closest lock that you're gonna see at a first overall pick, probably not ever, but for a very long time. I don't see him falling to even second.
Yeah, I would say the gap between Trevor Lawrence and the next best player in this draft is equivalent to LeBron in the 2003 draft. I think that ever since Trevor Lawrence was a freshman in college, it was known that he was gonna be first overall, and he just continued to perform and set himself so far apart from the competition that even this year, if he would have sat out the whole year, he still would have been the number 1 pick in the draft.
Yeah, I agree that. I agree with that. His first two years of college were just way too good that the only way that he wouldn't have gone first overall is if he would actually played this year and had like a major injury or just like awful the entire year. But even then, though, even if he was really bad this year, I still think he would have been a first round pick just because of how good his film were for his freshman and sophomore year.
Mhm. So let's go into our basketball segment of the show here. What the fuck is wrong with the Boston Celtics?
Yeah,
Colin, go ahead and take it away on this one because I know you have a pretty big passion for hating the Celtics, and I do too. So I feel like we have some pretty good points here.
yeah. So the Celtics have just been struggling right now. They have not been playing good. They're currently the sixth seed in the Eastern Conference, which isn't saying much because I mean there's a total of 4 or 5 teams with positive records in the Eastern Conference. So being sixth overall, you have an even record. The Eastern Conference is not good. Right now, the Celtics are in a one-game losing streak and their last 10 are 4-6. So they have been really struggling recently. So the main thing that's wrong with the Celtics right now is Kemba Walker. So the first problem is that he's only played 15 of the Celtics 30 games so far. So he's only played half the games and you know, he hasn't even been good whenever he's played. He hasn't helped them at all. So he's only shooting 37% from the field. From the field in the games that he's played. Like that's ridiculous. How do you shoot that bad from the field? That's awful. And then on top of that, he's averaging a career low 22% assist rate, even with a usage rate that's currently about 1.5% higher than his career average. So even when he's playing and he's not shooting the ball, he's not making the pass to the assist like he normally would throughout his career, even though his usage rate is slightly higher than his career average. And then his defensive box plus minus is already negative 0.06, which is, that's through less than half the season, and that's already the lowest since his rookie year, which was negative 1.4. So not only is he not healthy and he's not shooting the ball from the field, he's also not making his teammates better by getting them open and giving them clean shots to make. He's also not playing good defense either. So this is just, I'm not going to put it all on him, but this is definitely a big part of why they're struggling. And with him playing so bad right now, it's making the Celtics a lot less confident in him to be the main ball handler, and that's pushing other people to step into that role, the main ball handler, a lot more. And those people aren't fully comfortable with it. That's why the Celtics right now are currently averaging the 10th most turnovers per game and the 28th least assists per game. So, I mean, I think the main problem is him right now. There are a few other problems with that team. Their rebounding isn't great, but I don't think that's the bigger problem as Kemba Walker, just him as a whole right now. He's been playing so bad whenever he's played. I honestly think they might be better off right now with him just being out. I think they were playing better when he was out because I think he missed the first like 13 games of the season and he came back and like missed 2 more. That's how he missed 15 total. So I think before he came back, the Celtics were playing better. So he's for them to be better, he needs to figure it out. That's for sure. What do you think?
Yeah, he's been fucking terrible all year. And I think Michael Jordan finally made a good NBA general manager and owner of a team decision to let Kemba Walker walk whenever came up to be a free agent because Kemba Walker is absolute dog shit right now. Whenever he was on the Hornets, he was a fucking baller. He would drop 30 on your head every fucking night. But now he literally can't even make a fucking free throw. It's ridiculous how bad he's become just in the last few years. A lot of it has to do with injuries. He can't really stay healthy. And now, since he is healthy and back on the floor, like you said, his usage rate is terrible. He can't even pass the ball. Even if you're not gonna like be an effective scorer, at least make yourself valuable on some aspect to your teammates and passing. I mean, he still is a pretty deadly player historically his whole career. So teams are going to give him that respect from the 3-point line. And he can use that to his advantage to make his teammates better, but he just hasn't. He hasn't played well at all. And I've been hearing multiple rumors of the Celtics looking into trading him. I know a few teams that are rumored to be interested, but I wouldn't doubt if it's false, are the Mavericks, the Chicago Bulls, and there's one more mystery team. But I think that the best thing for the Celtics would be to get him out of town. I think they play a lot better with him off the floor, and I think they need a new primary ball handler. They could try Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown as kind of a point forward. I'm pretty sure that's what they've been doing lately, and it's been working a lot better than having Kemba Walker on the floor.
Yeah, and just to touch on your Michael Jordan thing, obviously we're both big fans of Jordan, but him as a general manager slash owner, making the decisions for a basketball team, he is so fucking bad. It's ridiculous. Like there, it's pretty rare whenever a former player in any sport, NFL, MLB, basketball, NBA, it's pretty rare if whenever a former player actually knows how to build a team. The last player to do that's probably been Larry Bird. There aren't very many players who can do that, so he's not good, but I think he's actually made two good decisions recently. So he made the decision to let Kemba Walker walk, and he also made a decision to draft LaMelo Ball, which I wasn't sure on at first, but it's looking like right now that he's definitely the steal of the draft, and that was a great decision. So maybe he's finally figuring it out. It took long enough, though.
hmm Yeah, I think one trade that would be beneficial for the Chicago Bulls and would also be beneficial for the Boston Celtics would be a package where the Celtics would get Otto Porter, Lowry Markkanen, and Thomas Satoransky. That would give them some floor spacing at the forward position, power forward position, would give them some bench depth in Otto Porter, and it would give them a secondary ball handler or primary ball handler if they wanted to use Satoransky. And the Bulls would get Kemba Walker, Daniel Tice, and the Celtics 2020 first round pick. This would be beneficial for both teams because the Bulls are kind of in a rebuilding phase. They're not going to be contending for the next, 3-4 years. So this would give them a chance to let Kemba Walker get back into the groove. It would also give them a draft pick since they are rebuilding, and this would help the Celtics immediately. What do you think about that package?
Yeah, I think it would help both teams. Because right now the Celtics do need a little bit more floor spacing, and they do need somebody who is more of a primary ball handler. And Thomas can definitely do that. He was a secondary ball handler for the Bulls last season for most of the year, and he did a pretty good job at it. And he's not just a ball handler too. He's a really good passer, constantly finding open teammates, and he's like a 39% career 3-point shooter, so he can shoot a 3 too. So that would add a lot of 3-point shooting to that team with those three, because Markkanen's like a 37% 3-point shooter, I think, in his career, and Porter is like around 38%. So I do like that would give the Celtics a lot of 3-point shooting. So that would make a lot of sense in my opinion. And then of course, Kemba Walker come to the Bulls, and he could really help out Kobe White, because I wouldn't say he's played bad this year, but he hasn't played how I think most Bulls fans would have expected after how he played at the end of last year. He played really good at the end of last year, and this year's kind of struggled a little bit. He hasn't really been finding teammates consistently, which isn't surprising. He was kind of more of a shooting guard type coming out of college. He wasn't like, the main point guard distributor guy. So I think most people aren't too surprised that he's been struggling a little bit with that, but I think most people think that he's struggling more than, we thought he would. So I feel like Kemba Walker could help him out a little bit, playing point guard position. So it would definitely be beneficial for both teams.
Yeah, I totally agree. It would also give the Bulls a little bit more versatility on what they could do offensively. They could go small and run a lineup with Kemba, Kobe White, Levine at the 3, Pat Williams at the 4, and Wendell, or they could even bring Kobe White off the bench and start Kemba Walker at the 1.
Yeah, they could do that too, and then just have Thaddeus Young be the power forward, starting power forward. Because, I mean, so far this year, Thaddeus Young has definitely been the Bulls sixth man of the year and possibly one of the, might even be like the sixth man of the year for all of NBA. He kind of struggled to start the year, but this last, like, I don't know, 15 games, like, last like half season or so, he's really like picked it up. He's been playing really good. He had a stretch back like 2 weeks ago where he had like 3 or 4 games in a row where he was just like 3 or 4 like assists or rebounds off of getting triple double. So he's been playing really good after kind of like a rough start of the year. So he could definitely be starting, or he could be in a trade. Bulls could definitely trade him and get some out of him because how good he's been playing in, because he's a veteran.
Yeah, I agree with that. While we're on the topic of the Chicago Bulls, another topic I want to bring up is how is Zach LaVine about to be snubbed again of an All-Star appearance? This dude is going off this year. If it wasn't for him, the Bulls would be a bottom 5 team in the NBA.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. He's averaging like 28 a game and like 5 rebounds, 5 assists, and he's shooting like 50% from the floor, 47 from three, and like 88% from the free throw line. Like he's not only putting up big numbers and scoring, but he's being extremely efficient too. Like I don't know, like should he have started the All-Star game? Maybe. I think Kyrie Irving definitely shouldn't have gotten the start because he hasn't played enough games this year to qualify for the points per game leader. So if you don't play enough games to qualify for like stats, why should you be able to start the All-Star game? It makes no sense to me. But should he have started? Maybe, maybe not. That's kind of up for debate. But he might not even make the All-Star game because at this point it's down to coaches and NBA players. And some NBA players don't take their voting seriously at all. So, he might not make the All-Star game, which would be stupid. Like, just how good he's been playing this year, how efficiently he's been playing. And like you said, the fact that the Bulls probably would have like 6 wins right now. They'd probably be fine for like the first overall pick right now if it wasn't for Zach LaVine. There should be like not even a question right now of him making the All-Star game. He should be a lock at this point.
I agree. Yeah, it's unfortunate. I kind of think the All-Star game is pretty fucking stupid to begin with. I think it's just a cash grab for the NBA. A lot of players are pretty upset about them having one this year, especially in the conditions. If they really cared about the players' health, I feel like they wouldn't be forcing an All-Star game upon them just to kind of get some extra money. But, it is what it is. Adam Silva is a fucking idiot, bald-headed prick, so he can go fuck himself. On to our next point. 8 to 10 teams looking at Draymond, or I'm sorry, Drummond. Yeah, nobody wants Draymond right now. But there are 8 to 10 teams looking at Drummond. What do you think about that, Colin? Do you think that's bullshit or do you think it's legit?
I think it's bullshit. There's really only like 2 or 3 teams that I feel like that he would fit on right now, to be honest. I think those teams, as we talked on last week, are the Mavericks are one team and the Nets are the other team. And I think the other team might be the Celtics because the Celtics don't have like a big time center who can like really rebound. So those are the really only 3 teams I can think of that would want Drummond and could possibly trade for him. So I'm not sure who the other 8 to 10 teams would be, to be honest. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
this could definitely just be another one of those because this report did come out of Cleveland. This could definitely be a report where it's the Cavaliers, intentionally leaking that to try to drive up the trade value. Of course, if a team sees that there are a lot of teams trying to trade for a player and that's a player they're trying to trade for, they're going to probably offer more because they want to make sure they really are above every other team's offer. So I feel like this is definitely a report where it's coming out of Cleveland and they're intentionally leaking it to raise his trade value. I don't see 8 to 10 teams wanting Drummond. Not because he's not a good player. He's definitely a good player. He's averaged like 13 some rebounds for his career. And I think out of his 9 total seasons in the NBA right now, he's only had one season where he has averaged over 13 rebounds a game, which is kind of ridiculous. And he's still only 27, so he's still like right in his prime. But I don't see many teams right now needing a center like Drummond, because he's a very much an old school center who can't really do anything outside of like 5 feet and just basically there to rebound. So I don't know. I don't see how 8 to 10 teams should be looking at him.
Yeah. What's his contract looking like?
He's on the last year of his contract. That's a decently big one. It's like 27 million this year. But of course, a team would have taken like around half of it if they traded for him. So I mean, uh, I feel like most teams, like a team like the Mavs or like the Nets, if they're like really trying to go for it this year, should definitely take on that contract. But I mean, it's so far they've been pretty hesitant to do it. So maybe they know something we don't.
Hmm. Yeah, and there hasn't really been any update on the Blake Griffin situation either. I know that he's been kind of sitting out as the trade talks continue and the buyout talks continue, but there's no updates in terms of whether that'll happen or not.
Yeah, it sounds like there's no way he's gonna get traded. Like just with his injury history, his massive contract. I mean, a fun stat. Do you know the last time Blake Griffin dunked was all the way back in 2019? Like
No.
he came into the league as this big dunker, and he's been so injury prone recently that he hasn't dunked in an NBA game since 2019. Like that right there should be like the biggest red flag of all time for a team. Like, hey, don't trade for this person. He literally came into the league as a dunker, and he hasn't dunked since 2019. So if I'm a
Yeah,
team,
that's pretty sad.
I'm not trading for him at all. Like basically, no matter what the cost is, even if it was like a protected second round pick, I'm not trading for him just because it's not worth it. I'm definitely only gonna go after him if he's bought out, and even then, it's gonna be like the minimum. I'm gonna give him the minimum contract. If he wants more than
Hmm.
that, then he can walk. I'm not gonna sign him.
Yeah, I agree. And he hasn't really been scoring on any Kardashians lately either. So
Yeah.
let's go into the MLB section of this show. Huge news. Fernando Tatis Jr. signs a 14-year deal worth $340 million. This dude just secured the fucking bag. Third biggest contract in MLB history, only behind our favorite player, Mike Trout, and another all-time great, Mookie Betts. What do you think about this insanely big contract, Colin?
Um, I have mixed feelings on it. So I feel like it was definitely good for the Padres to lock up like their future like franchise cornerstone because he is an extremely talented player. Obviously, I don't think there's anybody who would argue that. He's 22 now, and he's in the last 2 seasons he's played. He's only played 2 seasons in the MLB so far. He's been one of the best over those 2 years. But on the other end, though, I think the Padres might have overpaid considering that he's only played the equivalent of one full MLB season, and they're giving him $340 million over 14 seasons. Like, if you were really gonna if you really want to make sure he was like the guy you think he is, it would have made more sense in my opinion to wait like 1 or 2 more years. Because if he continues to play at that level, his value is not gonna raise that much more. Like if you would have waited 1 or 2 more years, the deal probably would have ended up being like a 14-year deal for like 360 million. So I would have waited to like really confirm that this is the player we think he is, like he's actually that player, and to make sure he doesn't get injured either. So definitely a good idea. The Padres locked him up, but I think they might have been a little bit too quick on this deal, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think Tatis is a extraordinary talent, but like you said, I think this was not the right time. He had an insanely good beginning of the half or beginning of the year last year. He had insane numbers. I thought he ran away with the MVP at first, but the second half of the season, he couldn't hit shit. I know he batted around like 200 something for the last half of the season, and they just pulled the trigger way too fast. He wasn't going anywhere. They still had him locked up for a few more years. They could have waited 2, 3 years easily and made sure that he was legit before they locked him up this big. Now they're stuck paying, and if they're wrong about this, they're fucked. They have so much money tied up into him that they're pretty much banking their whole future for at least the next 10 years on uh, Tatis Jr.
Yeah, I agree. Because if something happens and he has like a massive fall off or he has like a career-altering injury, like what are you gonna do with all that money? Like he's making a ridiculous amount of money per year. Like what are you gonna do with that if he gets injured? Like I don't know. It was just too quick in my opinion. I mean, I think they have under team control for 4 more years. So they could have waited 3 more years, waited till his walk year, and then offered him a contract like that. To make sure nothing happened that would really hurt their franchise in the future. To make sure that he's the guy they think he is. So I don't know. I feel like it was definitely a good idea to lock him up. I just feel like they just did it too quickly.
Hmm. I'm gonna go with the bold take right here. So I believe Tatis is not going to win a single MVP his whole career. I think he's massively overrated. I still think he's a good player, but I think there's way too many good players in the NL right now that are just going to be way better than him for a lot longer of a time. A guy that comes to the top of my head is Juan Soto. He's 21 years old, maybe 22 by now. I believe 21 though, and I think he's a better overall player than Tatis. This dude is probably the most well-rounded 21-year-old baseball player that's ever been in the league. He can hit to all fields. He has a fucking cannon. He hits for average. He hits for power. He has some speed. I've never seen a five-tool baseball player at this age as good as Juan Soto.
Yeah, and he takes his walks too. He's just a great all-around player. And like the main problem people had with him coming into the MLB was his defense. It wasn't really good, but in his years, in his few years so far in the MLB, he's definitely improved his defense. Because when he came into the league, his defense was really below average, but since he came into the league, he's more like an average defender now. And just everything else though in his game is like great. So he's just so good right now for being so young. I definitely feel like he's the better player out of those two. And I wouldn't say that Tatis will never win MVP, but I think he'll probably only win like one with Soto being in the league. I feel like he'll definitely be winning most of those MVPs.
Hmm. Yeah, there's also guys like Acuna, Elbies, Cody Bellinger, Yelich that have potential just to run away with MVPs on any given year. I just think Tatis isn't going to live up to the hype. I know I may get a lot of hate for saying that, but I'm a guy that's more about consistency, and he just hasn't proven it for me yet. So I don't think he's going to win an MVP, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and then in terms of the shortstop market, because this deal wasn't just big because of the Tatis, just signing him in general, there were so many more things that happened because of it. So the shortstop free agent market this year is going to be insane because Trevor Story, Francisco Lindor, Javier Baez, and Carlos Correa are all going to be free agents after this season, who are, obviously all shortstops. So with him signing that massive deal, it's just to raise the price for, either an extension or just the sign of free agency after this season. It just raised that price pretty significantly. So, I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I think the market is definitely raised for the shortstop position. I'm surprised that Lindor hasn't reached an extension already with the Mets, considering they gave up a pretty hefty amount to get him. And I know they want to make him their long-term shortstop. I just thought that Steve Cohen would be a lot more aggressive on doing that. Javier Baez, it's still up in the air if the Cubs are gonna want to make him their long-term shortstop or they're gonna trade him since we are in a rebuilding phase right now. Trevor Story, I mean, you would think that they're going to give him an absolutely massive contract, considering they got rid of Arenado's contract, which I think was to free up space for him. And Carlos Correa, possibly one of the most overrated people in the MLB, I think is not even worthy of a fucking big contract. This dude, honestly, just needs to get the hell out of Houston. I could see them sliding over Alex Bregman, who is one of my favorite players and played some really great shortstop in college. I think they could just slide him over and get rid of Correa completely.
Yeah, I agree. I think Correa is definitely an overrated player. I mean, the dude is inconsistent when he plays, and then then he's injured a decent amount too. So I feel like he's definitely overrated. Um, the question though is, if you had to rank these players, the Trevor Story, Lindor, Baez, and Correa, based off the size contracts you expect them to get, uh, how would you rank them?
I think Lindor is number one. I still think he's the best shortstop in baseball. Tatis, like I said, just hasn't proved enough yet. Number two, I'm going to go with Trevor Story. He plays in Coors Field, so that may have a little bit to do with it. But he is the face of that franchise currently. He can hit, he can field. He's a very well rounded baseball player. Javier Baez is going to be number three for me. He's another do it all type of guy. He's got an insane glove, he's got an amazing arm, and he can run the bases. He's a little swing happy, but it has been working for him. He had a little bit of a down year last year, but we'll see what he does this year. And like I said, Carlos Correa definitely lasts on that list for me. He just isn't getting the job done consistently enough for me. And I think that no team's going to be willing to lock him up for a long term hefty deal with his injury history and inconsistency.
Yeah, I completely agree with your ranking. I definitely think Lindor is the best shortstop in baseball, mainly because I feel like Tatis hasn't proven himself yet with how little he's played. I know some people have been putting him above Lindor. A Bleacher Report article I just saw on Sunday, I believe it was, actually had Tatis as the best shortstop in baseball and Lindor number two. And
Cap.
that's partly it because Lindor had a pretty bad year last year, but I also think you can't put too much weight into the year last year, the baseball season, because there's only 60 games. So, I mean, players go through, even like the best players in baseball, sometimes you can go through an extended slump that's, 60 games, which, I mean, you saw multiple big name players last year, like Yelich, Baez, Bryant, and there's a few other ones right now. We can't, Bellinger did it too. Big name players who went through, exactly what I just said, an extended slump. And Lindor was kind of one of those people. It wasn't as big as like a Yelich or a Baez, but he still didn't put up his usual numbers. So I feel like you can't put too much weight into that because of how short the season one was, and because of how many players went through a slump like that too. And then in terms of Baez, like you said, he went through a slump last year too. But it sounded like the main reason for that was because he was really big into looking at his swings and looking at like what the pitchers were doing to him after his at bats on like the iPads, whatever they were in the dugout. But because of the whole Houston Astros scandal, fuck them. Um, they took that away. You can't have iPads in the dugout anymore. So it seemed like that really affected him a lot. He did say that that was the main reason why he was struggling, because he really liked going after an at bat no matter what the outcome was, and looking and watching what the pitcher was doing, and seeing how his swing looked and stuff. So that might really be why he struggled so much last year, and that is coming back this year. The MLB did announce it's coming back this year, so I would probably expect a bounce back from Baez this year.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Let's go ahead and jump into our next topic here. Who do you think is going to be the next $300 million contract in MLB?
Um, I'll go ahead and let you. I already know the player that you're thinking of. I'll go and go with the other one. I'm gonna say Cody Bellinger because there are players like Lewis Roberts, Eloy Jimenez, Ronald Acuna, um, Albies. All these young players have already signed extensions through like where they're gonna be at 29, 30, 31 by the time it ends. So there's no way a player that old is gonna get a contract for $300 million in my opinion. So I feel like that really limits the market down to only maybe two or three players. And Cody Bellinger is one of those players because he's a really good player, even though he's a little bit inconsistent. He's had either really good years or really down years. Because he had a good year his rookie year, then his next year I wouldn't say he played bad, but he wasn't up to par with his rookie year. And then the year after that he won the MVP. And then this last year, he really struggled for most of the year. So he's been pretty hit or miss so far in his career, but I definitely, he's still young. He just turned 25, I think. So I feel like he's still got a lot of time to figure that out. And I think he has 2 more years with the Dodgers on his current contract. So I feel like he's definitely one of like the 2 or 3 players who could really, get that contract. Who do you think could get that contract?
Well, the guy I'm going with is the obvious one. It's an MLB fan's wet dream. Juan Soto. Like I said, everything you want out of a franchise player. He is good in the field. He's got an insane bat, hits for average, hits for power, knows how to run the bases, is a good teammate. No bad publicity with him. He's a guy that I would 100% sign to a long-term deal and make him a staple of my franchise. And with Cody Bellinger, I agree. The Dodgers love to spend money. They have a fucking endless surplus, apparently. They must have trees out in LA that just fucking throw out money. But yeah, I could see Cody Bellinger definitely securing the bag pretty soon.
Yeah, I think the most likely one is Juan Soto because of how young he is. I mean, he could probably be signed to like a 15, 16, 17 year deal, to be honest, because of how young he is. And because throughout his career, he's shown massive improvement. Like, he came in and was a great rookie, but then even after that, he's shown improvement of every aspect of his game, even though he already came in and was already a great player, just immediately. He just came in and was a great player immediately, but he still showed great improvement. So I feel like gonna he's definitely like the safe option to get the next $20 million contract. And honestly, I think there's a chance he might break Mike Trout's record for biggest MLB contract. I could definitely see that because of how young he is and because of how just good he is. He's just incredible. He's such a good player.
Yeah, I could see that too. Let's go ahead and do our before spring training now that it started. So let's do our spring training starting predicting division winners. So Colin, I'll let you go ahead and start this. I want you to go through every division in the NL and AL and predict your winners for the division for the season.
Okay, so I'm gonna start with the NL East. I'm gonna go with the Nationals. I know a lot of people are going with the Braves right now, which isn't surprising, but I think the Nationals made a lot of really good moves over the offseason. They have a really good rotation already. That three-man rotation with Scherzer, Strasburg, and what's that lefty?
Corbin.
Yeah, Corbin. And then they had another veteran who's great in the playoffs in Lester. And then they made a deal for Josh Bell, like kind of like their only weakness was a first baseman in terms of their lineup. And they got Josh Bell. And considering that he's a switch hitter, who obviously most switch hitters hit lefty because of a lot of right-handed pitchers in baseball. Um, I think that was just a great move for them. They gave up basically nothing, like I said. And on top of that, left field, oh no, right field, sorry, in Nationals Park is really short. So I feel like with him being, a switch hitter who's gonna hit mostly left-handed, that's gonna be huge for him and his power department. And I also think that even though the Cubs non-tendered um, Kyle Schwarber, I think he was also a really good sign because yet again he's another left-handed hitter who has a lot of power. And with how short that right field is in Nationals Park, I feel like he's definitely gonna put up big power numbers. And I wouldn't be surprised if he leads the league in home runs because he was already a huge power guy. And within a park that small, I feel like he could definitely like just have some like kind of weak fly balls that just fly out because of how short the right field is there. So NL Central for me is going to be the Cubs. The main reason for that is because I feel like the Cardinals are overrated now because of the Arenado deal, and this is the main reason. Like, so Arenado's a good player. He's obviously the best defensive third baseman in baseball. I don't think anybody's gonna argue that at all. He's way too good defensively. It's kind of like ridiculous. Some of the plays you watch him make are like, how? He's just way too good defensively. But I feel like his bat is definitely overrated, and this is why I think that. So in Arenado's career, he's played 543 games at home. It was obviously at Coors Field because he's only played for the Rockies so far in his career. In those games, he's a 985 OPS. So if through a whole season you put up a 985 OPS, you're gonna be one of the best players in baseball, probably like top five, and constantly in the MVP race. But in 536 games away, so only a couple less, his OPS is a 793. That's over a 200 point drop off in OPS. I feel like that's something that nobody's talking about, and I don't know why. If you're an MLB player and you have a 793 OPS, unless you're like extremely fast or like a ridiculous defender, which Arenado is, then you're going to be struggling to stay on an MLB roster. And like I said, MLB is a great defender. He's like obviously the best third baseman in baseball, but he is slow. He is a very slow third baseman. He's probably one of the slowest in third baseman in baseball right now. So if he doesn't hit, if he's gonna continue hitting like a 793 OPS or an 800 OPS and still be that slow, the only really positive attribute for him is gonna be his glove, and he's still on a pretty decent sized contract. So if he's really that player, 800 OPS player at the bat, then that could really hurt the Cardinals. Um, NL West, this is a pretty obvious one. The Dodgers, we talked about on I think the last two podcasts, they are just the most complete team in baseball by far. But I do think that the Padres have a better shot at winning this division than most people think. And the reason why I think that is because it only takes a few injuries or a few just like people hitting a massive regression or going into a somewhat long slump for a team to really hit like a brick wall and fall off. And even though I don't think it's gonna happen to the Dodgers, if it does end up happening, I feel like the Padres definitely gonna be close enough to where if it does happen, they could definitely win that division because their team's also really well rounded. Um, so my AL East prediction is gonna be the Rays, and the reason for that is the Yankees have a really good team. But the Yankees cannot stay healthy. Every good player in the Yankees has had so many injury problems, Aaron Judge and Stanton, that I do feel like it's going to continue happening, and that they just won't be able to stay healthy enough to compete with the Rays. The Rays somehow, with their like $28 million payroll every year, somehow put out teams that are not only competitive, but usually some of the best teams in baseball, especially recently. So I do think they're trying to continue even with them trading away Blake Snell. Because I feel like Wander Franco is probably going to be coming up at some point this year. I feel like he's definitely going to help them out. Um, so on my AL Central pick, I'm picking the White Sox, which I feel like isn't going to be surprising. The Indians are going through a rebuild, obviously, because they just traded Lindor. They only have one good player left in their team. Well, two, actually. They have Shane Bieber and Jose Ramirez, but outside of those two, not really anybody else really great in that team. The Twins are a good team, but I do think the White Sox are the better team, especially because you have all these young players like Dylan Cease, Luis Roberts, and Elo Menez who got that MLB experience last year, and they found out weaknesses of their game, and they had an entire offseason now to really work on it and make their game more complete. And I think all those players are extremely talented and are definitely gonna, be able to fix those weaknesses in their games and become a much better player. And then the AL West, which is the last division for me, is the A's. Um, I don't think the Astros are gonna win that division. I think they'll probably barely go positive. I think they'll win somewhere around 83 games. 'Cause I think Altuve is going to continue his decline. He's really had injury problems recently, hamstring and knee issues the last like 2 years, and his bat to ball skills have really declined. That might just be because of the whole scandal thing. That might honestly be the only reason why he was so good. He just knew what pitch was coming, so fucking cheater. Um, yeah, I think that team's overrated. And then in terms of the Angels, Mike Trout's still obviously the best player in baseball. Rendon's a good player. That lineup's pretty good in general, but that pitching staff as a whole, the rotation and bullpen, are consistently like bottom five, at best bottom 10 in baseball. So even with their lineup consistently being like a top half baseball lineup, their rotation is just so bad that it doesn't really matter. So I mean, I think that really only leaves the A's in my opinion. So that's why I picked them. Now, who do you have to pick to win those divisions?
So I'm going to start with the NL East. I'm going to go with the Braves. That's the pretty popular opinion if you ask a lot of people. I think the Braves improved this year. They extended Ozuna, which I think was a good move for them. They still have young guys like Acuna, Albies. They have the reigning MVP, Freddie Freeman. They have a pretty solid rotation. They're going to have Charlie Morton as part of that rotation now. That was already pretty stacked, considering they had Max Fried, I mean, and Mike Soroka. I believe they still have Cole Hamels as well. So they have a very, very solid starting rotation. They also have a pretty solid bullpen as well, one of the top in baseball. And they're a very good team at home. They have a very, very, very good record at home. That NL East though is going to be really tough this year. There's a lot of good teams. I think the Nationals are sneaky good. I think they actually have a chance to win the World Series this year. They also picked up Jeremy Jeffries. They just signed him today, which I think is another really sneaky good pickup for them. The Nationals have had an offseason of just sneaky good pickups. No like really huge name players, but they've been adding pieces consistently that are just making them better and better. And they're like one big trade away from being like a major contender. But the year that they won the World Series, nobody would have picked them preseason to win the World Series, especially with how they started out. But they kind of proved that as long as you have like 2, 3 solid pitchers, then some decent guys in your lineup, you can win a World Series. So look out for them. They have a shot. And for the NL Central, I'm going to go with the Cardinals. I think the Cardinals at this point are a little bit more well-rounded than the Chicago Cubs. It's going to be a two-man race between the Cubs and the Cardinals. The Pirates are rebuilding. They're trash. Same with the Brewers. They're rebuilding. And the Reds just don't have what it takes anymore without Trevor Bauer. They got rid of Iglesias. They're kind of in a rebuilding phase as well. The Cubs still have some pretty solid pieces, but the Cardinals have a star-studded lineup. They have guys like Goldschmidt still. They obviously added Arenado. Their pitching rotation is great. They still have a great bullpen. They're just going to be a great overall team. I think that it's going to be a close race, though. The Chicago Cubs still definitely have a chance. For the NL West, I'm going to go with the Dodgers. You can't go wrong with the Dodgers. They're pretty much consistently winning that division every single year. I think this year is going to be the closest race. I think the Padres are going to give them a run for their money, but that team's just way too deep and way too well-rounded. I mean, you already had the second best player in the MLB in Mookie Betts, and you added another top 25 player in Trevor Bauer. It just doesn't get any better than that. They also added Justin Turner to return, who is a very consistent hitter for them and a pretty decent defender there at third base. Now to jump over to the AL, I got the Yankees winning this year. I think the Rays just got rid of too many important pieces, and I don't see Tyler Glass now being able to stay healthy the whole year. He has had some injury problems in the past, and he's going to be their ace. With them getting rid of Blake Snell and them getting rid of Charlie Morton, if he goes down, they're pretty much screwed because they don't have any really big name ace that they can throw in there and have them rely on that guy to win a game. They're going to be bringing up Wander Franco this year at some point, and they already have a pretty solid lineup. Guys like Brendan Lowe and Austin Meadows are going to be solid for them. They still have Kevin Kiermaier and Willie Adames. They have some solid bats, and especially Randy Arozarena. He's going to be good. He showed flashes of greatness there in the playoffs. But I just don't think they have what it takes to beat the Yankees. I feel like the Yankees are going to have a pretty bounce back year this year. A lot of guys that had a down year, like Gleyber Torres, some guys that couldn't stay healthy, like Aaron Judge, Stanton, I think are going to stay healthy for the most part of the year, and I think they're going to run away with that division pretty easily. Garrett Cole is going to be a stud this year. And for the AL Central, I'm going to go with the Chicago White Sox here. In that division, the Twins have the second best chance, but the White Sox are pretty well ahead of them. They added Lance Lynn to their starting rotation on top of already having Dallas Keuchel and Lucas Giolito. They added some pieces to the bullpen as well with getting Liam Hendricks, who is potentially the best reliever in the game. And they also added another bat to their lineup with Adam Eaton, bringing some outfield help in. They're going to have a really solid lineup. I just see them, taking that division pretty easily. The Indians aren't going to be much of a competition this year since they're in their rebuilding phase. And the AL West, I'm going to go with the A's as well. I just don't think the Angels have what it takes yet to beat them, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did. I would say that's probably the most likely upset in terms of division winner is for the Angels to take the AL West. The A's are kind of bound for a down year. They've had a lot of winning years lately, and they got rid of some pretty massive pieces like Liam Hendricks, and they got rid of a few pitchers. So I wouldn't be surprised if they had a down year, as well as I think Chris Davis left them, the shortstop. Or was it Chris Davis or Marcus Semien? Do you remember who left them?
I think Simeon signed with the Blue Jays, and they traded Chris Davis. I think they traded Chris Davis to maybe the Orioles,
Rangers, maybe?
yeah, maybe the Rangers. I can't remember, but I think they got rid of
Yeah.
both of them. So
Yeah, so two guys that they relied on pretty heavily in their lineup are going to be gone now, which, gives me a feeling that the Angels could slide up there as long as they had a really good season in terms of pitching, because that's where they struggle is pitching. So if the Angels prove solid pitching, they can easily take that division. Let's go into our second to last point here of the show. Clayton Kershaw, we talked about last week how he said that he could be done after this year. It's coming out that it looked like he lied. What do you think about this, Colin?
yeah, I'm not sure why he said, because last week, it was reported that he said that he didn't know about playing past the 2021 season, but now on Sunday, so just a few days ago, according to USA Today, he said, "I have no intention of hanging them up." He also said that I'm only 32. I have a few years left in the tank. I'm excited about playing this year, so I'm not sure why he said that he didn't know about past this season, because he clearly did. I mean, either that who made that decision pretty quickly. I feel like when it comes to something like playing, really committing for playing a professional sport for a whole year, that's a pretty big commitment, because you have to really, your whole schedule has to be at that. You have to be training and get ready for it and playing the games and everything. So I feel like he definitely knew he was going to play past this year, but he just lied in my opinion. Because either that or, like I said, he made a really quick decision, but that's a pretty quick decision to make in my opinion. From 1 week, I don't know if I'm going to play next year, to this week, like, he's pretty confident he's going to play for at least one more year minimum, so I don't know.
Yeah, I think he took some heat from fans and from the Dodgers organization, considering that they're one of the top teams in the MLB right now, and they look like they have a good shot at winning the championship for the next 5 years here. For him to say that is kind of ridiculous, and I think he took a lot of scrutiny from teammates, fans, and front office, so he had to come out and kind of clear the air on that. Which brings us to our last talking point of the day. Tim Tebow retires from baseball. I mean, he never really contributed much to begin with, but I mean, he's hanging up the cleats.
Yep, I think this is probably the most shocking news of the week right here. Who would have guessed Tim Tebow never made it to the MLB? Never would have guessed that.
Yeah, I think that I could have called that from the first time I seen him pick up a bat that he was not going to be making it to the MLB. At least now he can, go talk on ESPN more, because he is actually a pretty decent host. I don't mind listening to him on some football takes, but we need to bring back Tebowing for sure. That was a pretty good trend. I'd like to see that come back.
Is the new Tebow going to be striking out in Double A? That's all he did.
It definitely could be. Yeah, he was kind of a joke in terms of a baseball player. I feel like he could have just stuck to football, at least played in like the fucking Canadian league. I mean, Johnny Football's up there slinging it. If he can do it, then fucking anybody can. I mean, at least Tebow's in church and not in the fucking strip clubs constantly like Johnny Football.
Yeah, all coked up.
Yeah. Well, that wraps up the episode for us, guys. Thanks for listening to the end here. If you liked it, make sure you go ahead and leave us a like, comment, and share. Go ahead and leave a review as well if you're listening on Apple or Spotify. And go ahead and give us a follow on social media. We got our TikTok account, Jockstrap Podcast. We got our Twitter account, Jockstrap Podcast. We got my personal TikTok, Nick on Top. And go ahead and leave us a follow on there too. So, Colin, did you have anything else for our viewers?
Nope.
All right, guys. Well, we appreciate you coming out and listening. Have a good rest of your day.